There's an artistic point that I want to talk about in this video, and that's that there is no such thing as the correct exposure. Well, let me phrase that a different way. There is such thing as an incorrect exposure, and that's basically when your exposure is not where you want it to be. It's not your desired exposure. And this is why for this entire course, I've been talking mostly, at least when I talk about exposure, I try to always say that's not where basically the desired exposure is. If I have said correct exposure, then think of that basically meaning as that's not my desired exposure. The reason that I want to bring this up is because a scene can be exposed any number of ways, and it just goes back to, again, the artistry, what you're going for in a specific scene. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean in this specific scene, because in this scene we have several different ways of shooting and exposing the scene for different artistic effects. Now let's go ahead and talk about the scene real quick. So what we have here is we have our lovely model Whitney. She's dressed in a yellow dress and we have yellow balloons. And any of you can guess why that is. If you guys said it's because it's a complementary color scheme, then you are absolutely right. So what I wanted is we're going for this scene. I knew that we'd be shooting over a blue backdrop, which is this lovely kind of, well, background view of Laguna Beach. It looks absolutely incredible. And because it's all blue in the background, what I wanted is a nice contrasty look with our clothing. And so with the clothing, with the balloon, we went with yellow because it's a complementary color to blue. So we're gonna get this beautiful pop off the background kind of look. Now with the shot, what I wanna do is go for a lot of negative space. We're gonna shoot it low. We're gonna cut off kind of at Whitney's, kind of right here at the calf. And then we're gonna shoot with mostly background and mostly like kind of sky in the back. So we get this beautiful negative space kind of view. With this scene, we could expose any number of ways. Now it's 12-something-30, so it's a terrible time to actually be shooting, but we're still getting somewhat directional light, at least the light we can place to our backs. That means that we can still work with this type of a scene. If the light is directly overhead, there's no way for us to really modify or place it against our backs, and that's when it's difficult to shoot. All right, so I'm gonna have you in this scene right now, and then we're just gonna expose it a whole bunch of number of ways. Now let me show you what I want you to do real quick on the pose. We're gonna go for a very whimsical kind of look, and the final shot that I want to get is going to be a really bright and airy shot against you in this background. Okay, so what I'm going to have you do is probably kick, let's have you kick the back leg over to this side. Sorry, that's not your back leg, your right leg. So let me go let's see. Yeah, that's good. We'll figure it out one way or the other. Okay, so we're gonna kick that side. I'm gonna have you hold the dress with the left hand, and we have to work a little bit with the wind because it is really, really windy right now. So we're gonna basically wait for the wind to die, and when it dies, we're gonna catch the balloons that are right up in the air. Just kind of, I want it to be a little bit to the side. Now we're gonna be shooting anything from basically our silhouettes over to bright and airy shots. And with the silhouettes, in order for it to look good, what I don't want is Whitney looking into the camera, because what happens is when we shoot a silhouette, we wanna see profile, we wanna see shape on the face. Otherwise, if you shoot a silhouette with me looking directly into the camera, well, you can't see any facial detail. There's no shape there. It's just kind of a blob. So Whitney, you're gonna actually be looking kind of towards the balloon side. There we go. And then we have the hair pulled over onto this side. That looks awesome. And then we're just gonna basically wait for the wind to come into place. So as far as camera settings go, because this camera and basic DSLRs, they're limited to 1/4000th of a second, we do need to bring the aperture up. So I'm gonna be shooting around 5.6. I might drop it down to f4 when we get to kind of the slower shutters, and we're gonna go from a very dark to a very bright look. And we're gonna show you that artistically, any of these looks are fine. It just depends on what you're going for. The only incorrect exposure is the one that doesn't match what you're going for artistically. Otherwise, well, it just depends on the look. And I think my favorite look in this, well, I can already tell you my favorite look is gonna be basically with this beautiful bright blue sky behind her, and it's gonna have a really nice bright and airy look, which would look awesome with like vintage toning. Okay, you ready to get the shot?
I am.
Okay. We're gonna get the shot. One thing I do have to do is I'm on my 35mm on my D5200. That way I can get a little bit wider. I'm gonna shoot low. The reason why is I don't wanna get any of the city backdrop in there. I just want ocean blue and sky blue in the backdrop. So it's gonna have an absolutely wonderful look to it. Very simple, very clean, yellow on blue. It's gonna look awesome. But getting low does mean that we're gonna have to play around a little bit. We might have to have Whitney lean forward a tiny bit because we are shooting from a lower angle. I'm also gonna crop at the calves, which I mentioned. So let's go ahead and start, and I'm gonna get into position. I should have done more ab workouts. Oh my gosh, it's burning. Got it. Okay, I'm gonna slow down the shutter again. Perfect. Gonna slow down again. So hopefully this video helps you all in understanding that in any particular scene, there is more than one artistically correct exposure. Sure, we can go for that correct or that perfect technical exposure, but really it matters what we're going for in our overall composition. Now for this particular scene, we shot everything from the silhouette to the bright, light, and airy shot. Now, what was your favorite, Whitney? I showed you all of them.
To be honest, I couldn't pick.
You couldn't pick? You liked them all?
All of them.
They're all equally awesome. I kind of preferred the bright and airy look, but that's kind of what I was going for in this scene. But really in any particular scene, the only right or the correct exposure is the one you're going for. If you don't get the correct exposure or that desired exposure, then you could say, okay, we need to look back on what we've done, make sure we get the right exposure, the one that fits your overall vision. That's it for this video. You can head on to the next one now. In this video, we're talking about white balance and color temperature, and specifically, I have 6 things. Let me count this right. 6 things that I want you guys to know when it comes to white balance and color temperature. And don't worry, this subject, especially if you're first getting into photography, it sounds confusing. We talk about things like degrees Kelvin, and we talk about all these different measurements and numbers, and it sounds extremely scientific, but we're gonna break down in a very simple way.